honored to have with us special guests who will be introduced soon by Fran Thigpen, the director of the name that includes parks and recreation and libraries and so on. We hope that, and I'd like to get a little more to know you. How many people are here, if you'll raise your hands, how many people are here who live in the St. Andrews subdivision area? Okay, and how many in the rest of Brookwood? And how many in Royal Pines and Mountain View? And how many came from a distance?
Hooray!
That most of you who are here, especially those who plan to hike in the park regularly, will take one of the sheets we have, and we also have some clips we'll pass around. In fact, you can do that now. Rayanne, will you?
Emily has them.
Rayanne, will you get the sheets also and pass to everybody? Because we're very anxious. This is in many ways a do-it-yourself park where we'll need to have everybody watching out, just kind of a neighborhood watch sort of a thing, you know, so that we can not only check for any damage or vandalism, also for people who are doing things they shouldn't. And so we will very much appreciate hearing from you. We would like all of you to sign one of these sheets that Rayanne's passing around now. Pass some to each row to get your email so that we can send you news about the park and what's happening. We'll enjoy that very much. For those who are learning of this park for the first time today, I will mention that it is a 30-acre wilderness preserve, and it's surrounded by housing developments on all four sides, except the Lemons aren't yet a housing development, but they're on one side. But then we have all of the Mills Gap Road area a little further away. And it will be kept permanently from any development except for the existing trails and two small grassed play areas that are already there, and a few short and narrow family trails that are planned for the months ahead. The existing trails shown on the kiosks and marked with blazes are 8 feet wide, so you don't have to worry about claustrophobia. Now I'd like to announce the agenda for the rest of our time together. First, we'll have a brief history of this track by Rayanne, then remarks and introductions by Fran, and then she'll tell you about all of the other dignitaries who are here and who's going to speak to you briefly. And then we'll have a cutting of the ribbon to officially open the park. And Rayanne is going to do that, hopefully. She'll be able to cut it. That's all of the ceremony. Then we will have two hikes taking off. One Rayanne will lead, going up Trillium Trail to the top of the property, up by Stone Gate, and back on Walnut Way, about a half a mile, a little more. And I'm going to lead all of us older folks on a short walk, about a quarter of a mile, out Walnut Way, which is almost completely level all the way, so that you don't have to worry if you aren't up to climbing. It'll go out to a view area. There are 2 or 3 up at the very top, and on this one at Walnut Way, we have view areas so that you can see all out to the east. And then, of course, as you come and go, you will have seen that right out at the gate, where you're under the power line, you can see all the way down that way. And so with that, I'll turn the time over to Rayanne.
Should I hand my talk out to somebody?
Lost
Yes,
your talk.
thank you.
That's embarrassing.
I sort of have this memorized, but maybe not. Well, Collier Cove Nature Preserve is part of the Rounded Mountains that make up the Appalachian Mountains, and they're ancient peoples who came to this area mostly used it for hunting grounds. And then in the 1700s, people gradually moved to the. Oh, I'm seeing people out here. I'm glad to see you all here.
She's excited.
Anyway, and the Revolutionary War began in 1776, and it was over in 1783. And in 1784, the first people came to settle in what's now Buncombe County. Other families moved to settle on the plateau and in the coves of the mountains, and soon there were a few hundred people living in the area. Collier Cove Nature Preserve is located on the east slope of Brown Mountain in the southern part of Buncombe County. The mountain was named for Mr. William Brown, who came to Asheville from Philadelphia to take over management of the land interests of the Earl of Cathcart from William's father, who had the responsibility for some years in the early 1800s. Among the earliest land records about Buncombe County is a notation that at one time the surveyed land of the Speculation Land and Company of New York passed along the summit of Brown Mountain, and Mr. Cox of Philadelphia had important interest in that company. And you recognize the name Cox if you've been in Asheville very long. Between 1824 and 1827, the Buncombe Turnpike was constructed between Greenville, South Carolina, and Greenville, Tennessee. Besides bringing livestock over the mountains, this road provided a way for the people who lived on the hot, humid coasts of South Carolina to more easily travel to the mountains, where they found the weather was much more pleasant and bearable in the summertime, before we had the days of air conditioning. In the mid-1800s, much of the land that's now in southern Buncombe County became large estates owned by wealthy South Carolinians who came to the mountains to escape the summer heat of the coastal areas. A number of large summer homes were built on those estates, mansions with thick stone walls and high ceilings for summer comfort, and only small fireplaces for occasional heating because they were seldom used in the winter. One of those large homes, now known as the Blake House, is located just west of Sweeten Creek Road on Royal Pines Drive. It was originally built in 1847 by a Mr. Pyatt in Charleston, South Carolina, and was known as Newington. The estate on which it was built included much of Brown Mountain, including what is now the Royal Pines Development, and part of Collier Cove Nature Preserve. Newington and most of the land was bought from Mr. Pyatt by Dr. Frederick Rutledge Blake after the Civil War. The home became the Blake House, and the east boundary line of the property was known as the Blake Line. And on all surveys unto the present day, the Blake Line is down there. It forms much of the eastern boundary of the Collier Cove Nature Preserve. Now, the other part of the land that makes up the Nature Preserve was, in the early 1900s, Lewis Frady acquired much land on the area east of the Leslie Range of mountains, including the southeastern side of Brown Mountain. His land was gradually sold to others, including Miss Monroe Pinner. Upon Mr. Pinner's decease, his land was divided among his heirs. The tract which later became much of the land in Nature Preserve was deeded to Henrietta Birmingham, who was the daughter of Monroe Pinner. It took me a long time to find that out, make that connection. When she sold the land, a deed of trust was put upon it, and upon foreclosure, Mrs. Birmingham bought the land back on the courthouse steps in the 1920s. In the 1930s, many people were facing hard times. Earl Morgan owned a candy company that still did good business in Buncombe County. He was able to buy several pieces of land on the eastern and southern slopes of Brown Mountain, which is also called Mount Royal. When he died, the land that became much of the Collier Cove Nature Preserve went to his son David Morgan, who began in the mid-1960s to excavate a place to build a home on the land for himself and his family. However, when Earl Morgan's will was studied, it became apparent that David Morgan could not use the land for a home, but only for the use of his children. He could education of his children. So he and his family decided to sell the property. In 1969, Robert Collier and Edward Peart, who had recently moved to Buncombe County, were searching for property on which to build homes and raise their large families. They and their wives jointly bought the 55 acres that David Morgan offered for sale. The 20 acres that became Stonegate was sold previously. In the meantime, the Blake lands had gone through several shifts of ownership, and when Mr. Peart and Mr. Collier were offered 14 acres of former Blake land, they bought them. This became the southernmost section of the preserve, with the south boundary line angling down from Rhododendron Drive to the Blake line. The 20 Collier children grew up on this property.
Mom.
Not 25 years.
The 20 children, excuse me.
Between the two families.
Two families. Anyway, they grew up on the land and they could all go hiking and had lots of fun. That was my youngest son who gave me that correction. In 1992, it was decided that the Collier and Peart families would formally divide the hillside property, which now totaled 60 acres after the 10 acres were taken out of the lower land for them to build houses on. In 1993, the Collier family arranged to have their 30 acres of land selectively timbered. As part of the timbering agreement, it was arranged to have wide trails made and 2 areas cleared and made flat and grassy. A few years later, much of the power line easement was smoothed and planted to grass and wildflowers. These trails and grassed areas are within the nature preserve today. Robert and Rayanne Collier wanted to keep their 30 acres in a natural state and decided that to have it become a Buncombe County Nature Preserve was a good way to do this. There are now houses built on all 4 sides of the land they purchased in 1969, and even though with care the hillside could be built into a subdivision, it was felt best that it remain a place for trails and view areas. In the view areas, one can see to the Blue Ridge, which is the eastern continental divide, and one can enjoy a view in the early mornings of the smokiness of the Appalachian Mountains.
Especially in winter.
Any time of the day, one can enjoy the feeling of being in the mountains, even though the cities are close. Many birds live on the hillside and in the trees, including turkeys, blue jays, pileated woodpeckers, smaller songbirds. Wild animals which inhabit the land at one time or another include bear, raccoon, spiders, nutria, fox, coyote, and once in a great while a deer. During the spring and summer and fall, one can enjoy many wildflowers of the park, which include trillium, trout lily, Solomon seal, dwarf iris, calyx, joe pye weed, and pokeberry. Bushes include laurel and mountain laurel. We might say rhododendron and mountain ivy. There are oak, maple, birch, white pine, walnut, and tulip trees, among which are found wild grapes, poison ivy, and invasive bittersweet vine. We challenge you to find more species on the hillside and enjoy the hillside.
I'm going to take just a moment to just tell you one more thing about this property and us. When we first moved here, we were looking for a home for our large family, and so we realized we'd probably have to hunt for a while. So we bought a home down in Oak Park, just south of town here, Arden, in Fletcher, and then Rayanne said, well, I think we're going to want a piece of property to build a home on, and I'm going to start hunting for one. So she drew a circle on the Buncombe County map where our church is, the Mormon church down here on Sweeten Creek Road, and another circle on where I worked at Taylor Instrument Company. And then she started looking for property in that area, and she started taking the newspaper every day, and pretty soon she had memorized the location and name of every piece of property in this area that was for sale, and had looked at them all, and then she just kept checking And one day she said, there's a new piece of property. This is the first day it's been listed. I'm going to go look at it. She called me up and said, if this is the property we're looking for, I'm going to ask you to authorize me to make an offer on it right now. And so they came out, and they, first of all, the realtor couldn't even find the place, and then he finally located it. And so they came, and so she said, this is the property we're looking for. And so she made an offer on it that morning, got the offer accepted in the afternoon, and by the next day they had had 3 more offers on it that were at higher prices. So she learned how to hunt for it and find the property, and we've been happy about it ever since. Now I'll turn time over to Fran.
You may want to also mention there was a 1-lane road to get to it.
It's my pleasure to thank some people, and there's quite a few on my list, so I wrote them down. I'll take just a couple minutes. About 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I had an appointment with Bob and Ray and Collier. They said, I want to come to your office. I want to tell you something. I want to talk to you about a park. 7 years ago. They since then kept the vision. They've kept faith that it would happen. They've kept on us to keep working with them. We appreciate it, Rayanne. We appreciate it, Bob, and your families. We appreciate and are grateful for the vision that you brought us. We thank you for your family, for what they've done to encourage us, your commitment to conserve 30 incredible acres. We appreciate that during this process, the generosity, Bob, twice to take me on these trails in your truck. I will never forget that. I hope if you've not ever had that pleasure,
You don't.
just wait. You to ask me about it, I'm glad to share.
It was fun.
I'd like to thank, just a second, I'd like to thank the commissioners, and I'll ask David King, Commissioner King, to speak in just a minute, but to all the commissioners for their support as we work for always through Parks and Recreation, but also specifically for this project. The Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, they helped us with the Colliers and working with the Colliers to purchase the property. They worked with us up here again, and that's thanks to both Jessica Stevermeyer, who's not with our department right now, and also Lucy, you and Jessica to help us move forward, and absolutely the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund for their incredible financial assistance. We're very pleased for that. I also need to thank all of Buncombe County's management, including the county manager, all the county staff, with a special thanks to Lucy. I appreciate it so much, the work you've done, and now you've moved on, but you've handed off to Steve Garrison. Steve, thank you. Lynn Pegg does everything. She's in charge mostly of signs. She's mostly in charge of making sure that the things that we need to do in the office stay right on track. Also within the county, another special thanks for a group that's not here goes to our General Services Department. Greg Israel is the director, and Steve Sams as the grounds maintenance people who have helped with the mowing, have helped with some of the clearing, helped oversee making sure this project happened. They have great skills, and they're willing to share them with us, and we're very appreciative. Also, there's a few people here that are part of the Friends of Collier Cove. I think maybe we're all Friends of Collier Cove. And as Bob said earlier, we're going to need help moving forward to keep eyes on the park, and that's what I appreciate so much that y'all will be doing. I hope that we'll see many of you. I hope you'll walk many times. I can't keep up with Rayanne. I've watched her walk these parks. When she was showing me, I rode with Bob. That's all I have to say about that. I appreciate the faith that the community have, all of y'all have had, that this would happen, and your patience. And I hope that you'll enjoy this beautiful park. Commissioner King, I'd appreciate a few words from you. Yes.
Good morning. What a lovely crowd. This is, I expected a few people, but this is absolutely wonderful how many people are here this morning. And on behalf of the County Commission, I'd like to say, give you greetings from Chairman Gant and Vice Chair Frost. They both would have loved to have been here, but Chairman Gant unfortunately is out of town. Vice Chair Frost, as a small business owner, had an employee out this morning and could not be here. But thank you for coming, and this really is about a wonderful, wonderful gift that the Colliers have done and given to the county and worked with the staff. Green spaces. Why is it so important that we have these spaces in our community, like this park, like greenways. This often comes up. Well, we have the Smoky Mountains, we have the Pisgah National Forest. But as time marches on, it seems like we're all busier and busier. And we need these spaces in our neighborhoods. We need to be able to access them for the pleasure, to get away from that hectic life. And this is a wonderful community y'all live in here. I'm a former resident of Royal Pines myself. It was just lovely coming back through to get here. And you will enjoy it, and even people outside of your community will come here and enjoy this space. It was truly a visionary thing on the Collier's part and their family. I believe I understood when they came to present this to the board that it was a family affair. All of them took part, and we had a number of in the chambers. And the commissioners, we did the easy part. We accepted this, and we voted to do it. The real work, and I want to emphasize this, is with our Parks and Rec people, our county. Fran had mentioned a number of the different ones. They really are the people who make it happen, is our county staff and employees. And this is just a wonderful thing. I want to thank you as a community I imagine your support is going to be behind this and keeping this going as a community park. And Mr. and Ms. Collier, thank you so much.
I would just like to say it is absolutely a beautiful day. It's a beautiful gift to the community, and I hope you will join me in thanking the Colliers as we get ready to do the ribbon cutting. Thank y'all so much. Where's Bob?
Please
Over there.
hand in your sheets with your email on if you can. Me?
We're allowed to?
I guess all the family needs to be down here, don't you think? I think all the family needs to be. I'll bring them all along. Don't you think we need? You want the rest of the family down here, Rayanne?
Yee! Come on, Meg. How low can you go?
I don't. I'm David.
Rayanne, you and Bob. Where's Bob? Bob's gonna get it. Bob.
Bob. Hey, Dad, two people.
Come over on this side.
Maybe without a stick.
This goes away.
I think we got everybody.
No sticks in